So when you click on it, you should see this empty base with one table already created, which is called table 1. You can see the tables up here. They will appear as tabs. And you can see that this table is currently active, and this table currently has 3 columns. One is called name, one is called notes, and one is called attachments. That's a first table that Airtable creates for us, but we can change it later on. This is the UI that we will be working with in Airtable. So if we had multiple tables, they would all appear up here, and we could simply click on them like tabs, as I mentioned. And then what we do is we change columns. We can add columns with a plus symbol, or fields as they are called here. And then we can also change a column's data type. So when you click the little arrow that points downwards, you get a context menu, and the first one is customize field type. Here we can say what kind of field this is going to be, and this determines what behavior and what kind of data we can store in this. We can rename it, we can add a description, we can duplicate it, we can insert one to the left, to the right. That's basically like you know it maybe from Excel. So insert a column to the left, to the right, sort, filter, hide the field or delete the field. So basically what you would expect to be able to create and configure your tables. All right, so this is blank, and we will now try, as I said, to implement this. So we'll start from left to right, and our first table would be student. So now I simply, and this is the first rule, I simply rename this table to student by double-clicking it, or using the context menu, rename table. Both should let you rename the table to student. And the first rule that we are introducing here is that in an entity relationship model, so the first rule, all entities or entity types, become tables. Very simple rule. And we can simply use the plus button up here and create a new empty table and call it module. Nicht model, but module. And then the third one, lecturer. So this gives us the first rule, and we can check that we have successfully applied that. Yes?
Is there any convention how to name it? So you start with a big letter?
Yeah, so basically when we were in a database on a technical level and we develop it for integrating it with an application and not with a nice UI, which we will actually be able to use as a user. So this Airtable allows us to build databases, but also create an UI for the database. So it's basically 2 things in one product. Usually, if you develop a database, nobody is ever going to see the column names. It's technical stuff that is never displayed in the front end. The front end is always renamed. So there's a nice name. So because we are in a situation that we are also using the tables here in the front end, we should choose names that look nice and that are speaking. So I will put the first letter in capital letter and the rest in small. But it's up to you really. But I personally think it looks just nicer to anyone who will see this database when they have speaking names and a large capital letter at the beginning. The same principle goes for the field names or the column names. We should choose them so that they speak and they look good, not in a technical manner. So in a technical database, you will find often, well, I don't know, first name and then underscore name. That's very technical because in a certain code page we cannot use like a space. We need to use the underscore. We just do it for that reason. Here we can use spaces, we can use characters as many as we want. We can even use brackets and parentheses. It's think more in terms of the user who is going to use it. It should be usable, not about the technical names of the fields and tables. Okay, so we have now created 3 tables, and I left out the office here. So the office of the lecturer is now just the office number for simplicity. So we could also add another table for the offices, for the office, which some of you modeled as an own entity type. Okay, so now what we didn't do yet is, so all entity types become tables, and of course their properties or attributes become columns of that table. So let's go to the student table and change this node field by customizing the field type, and that also gives us the chance to rename it, and I will change that to first name. And then use the drop-down menu, and this now opens a menu where we find all the possible data types that Airtable supports, and we need to find a suitable one for first name, and I think single line text is exactly what we need. So it's not a long text, it's a single line text. We're going to type in some text, and I'll just change it to single line text and click apply, and then I have, you can see the little letter here that indicates it's a single line text. This is an attachment, and I'll change it to the second column. I'll change that to last name, and also make it a single line text. So this is these two, and then we have the primary key, which is the student number or whatever we want to call it. And this is always the column on the very left. You can see this line here. So this is always visible, and this the column on the very left, which is now called name, this is the primary key of the column of the table, and I call it student ID. And now we need to think about what should it be. It should be a number. So I think your student IDs are 6-digit numbers, right? Simply. Then, okay, this would also be a single line of text, because it's rather a string of numbers than a number which we want to calculate with. So we can use it as we can leave it as a string. So maybe someone, or Julius, what's yours?
632.
Well, that's now, of course, a data security issue here. 6.
645, I think.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be correct. 645. So okay, now I entered the first value. So this is how you enter rows. You can simply type in, like in a spreadsheet. So I will pixel that out if you want. But I need an example. So this would be our first record, and the primary key would now be 632645. Okay. This should be it. We could add an email address, which is quite nice, and because I will do that to demonstrate another field type, I would simply type email address, and when you scroll down, you see that Airtable has a lot of pre-configured data types, and one of them is actually email. So you can simply say, okay, this is an email, and it will so it will be able to, for example, validate when you later have an input form. It will know that email addresses have a certain syntax. You need something before the ad, something after the ad, and you need a domain, top-level domain, and it will be able to validate this automatically for us when we know. So here we can type in whatever we want. It doesn't really matter. But later, when we use forms on top of our data, we can make use of those data types that we have pre-configured. All right. Yeah.
Is this a violation of these normal forms, because the email address always consists of first name dot last name and
You mean the reason why it would be a violation is because it's basically a combination of.
Yeah.
No, I don't see why that would be a violation.
Because by knowing the name and the last name, you also know the email address. You don't have to ask.
Well, that's not totally true. If you have 2 Julius Rackus, they will have different email addresses. But even if it were true, that wouldn't be a violation. That's fine. So that's different information, the email address. Well, it wouldn't.
Also a second name. So my real name.
Yeah.
is Felix.
So yeah, no violation. Okay, let's go to module and check what we have here. We have also a number, or in this case, we have a number and a name. And I think our modules, module numbers are also strings. They have letters in it. So we change the primary key to, I don't know, I call it module ID. And it's also a single line of text. And then the name of the module I change to, I always like to choose longer names, like module name. Because if you have later, if you see the column in a different context, you will immediately know it's from a module. And if you use name, a student will have a name, maybe a module will have a name, a room could have a name, a building can have a name. It's harder to know which one it is. So because we have the ability to use speaking names here, I always use speaking names where possible. So I use module name. We could say student first name, but that maybe would be a little overkill. But for module name, I use module name. You can, of course, choose whatever you like. The names are chosen arbitrarily, but it should make sense and it should be speaking. And maybe that's it for modules, so I can delete the attachment column. And then, I don't know how our modules look, but I just type in one, for example, information management, which I don't know the ID, but it's, I don't know. I'll put a prefix M, which does not exist in reality, but then we know it's a module. Okay, so we have module ID, module name. Both are data type single line text. And then let's go to the lecturer and give him an ID, first, last name, and office number. And maybe we add, just for the fun of it, a birth date, because then we can use another data type. All right, let's first give this lecturer, I don't know, a lecturer ID. And let's make this also a different type, not a text. So if you click on customize, you can choose something called auto number. And this will automatically create a running number for you. So when you add a new entry, this will be number 4, and the next one will be number 5, and so forth. So you don't have to deal with creating the IDs. If you don't have a better number and you simply say, I want them numbered, you choose auto number and you don't have to deal with it anymore. So I now delete all the other rows. And then I say, okay, this one will become the first name. And it will be single line text. And this will be the last name. Will also be single line text. And then we have room number. I'll just call it room. And then maybe we can introduce a new data type here as well. So we don't just want to type the room, but rather it would be great if we have a selection of rooms. So we choose single select, and then we can simply add rooms. I don't know, add some from our building. And maybe 110. That's 3 rooms from the OS building, and I uncheck the colored option so they are not colored. And I save this, and what happens now is I can now choose from the drop-down which room it is. If I have a fixed set of rooms and I can store them all in this list, then I can. This would also mean that maybe there are more than one. There's more than one person in one room. So just to introduce this data type. In reality, maybe it would be better if we could type it, but. And if you need new options, you simply click on add an option. Okay, so then we have the room, and so I'll just put in my name, so I don't need another example here, and I have the ID 1, and I'm in room OS 108. Okay. This would be now completeness for the first rule. So we converted all entity types into respective tables in Airtable or in the database, and we added also the columns.